Okay, today I want to show you how to build a GUI to output some displays that we're working on. Now, remember last week showed you this, or Wednesday it was, showed you a fan controller unit. This is what I wanted to do then. So basically you have a title. When you put a temperature in here, you test. Depending on what the temperature is, you'd get a different output. So in this case, if it's under 25, both a small fan and a large fan would be off. And I'd like them both to be coloured red in the background. And then if it's between 25 and 35, the small fan will be on. If it goes over 35 degrees, then the large fan will be on. It's quite complicated. I did it before. So I thought what I'd do in this video is start off with something a bit simpler, and we'll create a fairly simple GUI, and we'll use a function, and we'll use another method called configure to show you how to do that. Alright, so let's start off just building a GUI. I want to show you the grid method. Now a grid, think of a table, think of rows and columns, and where you want to put things in rows and columns. Now the GUI that I'm actually going to build today is a fairly simple one, a lot simpler than this. I'm going to start off with just having a title, just one little entry box there, and a test button. And then later on we're going to put some information down here. So let's just start off by building the basic GUI using the grid method. So we start off, what I like doing is giving fairly explicit titles. So I'm going to say title equals, now you have to declare what sort of widget it is. So in GUIs we call things widgets, whether they're entry boxes or buttons or radio buttons or pull down menus. So entry is just when we want to enter text, have something that will display text. We have to write master because master equals TK, so master is like the root of the document. And then we write text, and then we write what we want to be in the text entry. Not entry, sorry, my mistake. Label. Alright, so what's going to be in the label? So I'm going to say fan controller. And that's it. Now, what I need to do then is I need to sort of say, well, okay, where is this label going to be? And I want to use the grid method. Then I have to sort of say what row and what position. So if we're going to use the grid method, it's in row equals 0 and column equals 0, and that's the code. Now the reason it's rows and columns is because when we build a GUI, rows go this way and columns go this way. So the first row is actually labelled column 0, the first column is column 0, and the first row is called row 0. That's why it's row 0, column 0. Right. That's the basic GUI. So when I go return now, it should come up. I'm still waiting. It's up. It's coming up in the other window. I'll have to drag it across. There it is. All it says is fan controller. Right. Now the next thing I want to do is add an entry. So an entry label. So I'm just going to call this the temperature entry. Now that's going to be an entry. So it's going to be like a box so we can put some data into. So text, oh sorry, not text. Now there's this specification here, go width. That says how wide it's going to be, how many characters wide. And then what I do now is I go temp entry dot grid like before. Now it's going to be row equals 1 because we're going one row down, and because we've only got one column, it's column equals 0. Now what that will do is that'll create an entry box. So I'm going to go run now. Must be saved. Here we go. It's done it. Right, again, so that side. Now here we go. So we can actually type something in here. Doesn't do anything at this stage. We're going to come to that in a second. Alright, now the next thing I want to do is have a button. So I'm going to call this button test btn. Get an idea what it is straight away. Oh, capital B for button. Again, it's master. And we just write the text here, so I'm going to write text. Test. And then I'm going to write test btn dot grid. Now that's going to be row equals 2, column equals 0 again. See what that looks like. Alright, it's over here again, I'll drag it across. And here is what we've got so far. So now we can put a number in, we hit a button. Nothing happens because we're not telling it to do anything. So this is where in a second we're going to add some output, and we're going to add one more label, and it's going to be an empty label which we can put stuff into later on. So, all right. Sake of the argument, I'm going to call this one output. It's a label, part of the master, text. Now to add an empty label, let's just go text like that. So it's an empty thing. At this later on, we're going to put a variable in there and change it, but I'm just going to show you. Now it's a grid. And then it's going to be row equals 3 and column equals 0. Because I want to see, actually, I've changed my mind, because I actually want to see what it looks like. I'm just going to put some blank text in here. Later on, I'll change it to a variable, just so you can see where we're going to with this. Alright, there we go. What I want to happen is when I click this, I want this to indicate some sort of output. So far I have done it. So what I need to do now, to get this to work, I need to create what we call a function. And I think I'll show you that in the next video. So just hang on to your horses, and I'll come back and I'll show you in the next video how to create the function.